Boy, am I excited to be in Poto. I tell you, I just watched with excitement as you begin to enter into worship. Aaron, you rascal, you're getting better, son. Marriage, I don't know what's happened to you, but you're just better than the last time I was with you. So I was just excited to enter into worship, and I watched as people began to enter into worship, and I said, glory to God. You don't have to be a football fan to get excited. Amen. Well, you didn't hear me. Someone said, do you think churches ought to close down? No. It's called essential. It's essential. You say, well, preacher, you're a little radical on that. Well, let me tell you, I might consider it non-essential when they close Walmart. But I've checked, and your Walmart is blowing and going. I'll go one step farther and say, I noticed they didn't think it necessary to close liquor stores. Is a liquor store more essential than church? Okay, that's the end of sermon 1. I just want to thank you for being here. God bless you. Yes, I do believe in wisdom. And yes, I have no problem. I understand with all the caution. And I travel extensively, so I do. But I just want you to know I do think church is essential. And I'm glad that you're with us today, and God bless you. I get to preach Crazy Family Sunday. I was watching as you were coming in, and there's a bunch of you here today. I tell you what, crazy folk. I know the Williams are crazy. I've watched them for years. Golly, I know their tree. I know the roots that run out from them. And, you know, they have crazy parents, and they've had crazy kids. Especially the one wearing the hat back there in the sound booth. I think his name is Josh. Are you running PA? Oh. What I thought. I had a feeling that's what he was doing, and I was expecting my mic to cut off. So that's, see, I told you they've got a crazy family. Crazy. It's Crazy Family Day. And I love the theme. I am so honored that you would let me in the door. I love this fellowship. I love this family. I love Covenant Church. I'm just excited about Jesus. So I struggle. This is one of those sermons where I don't know how much time I kick out ideas and float ideas and try to say, okay, what can I bring from here and bring from there, because I want to be relevant and I want to stick with the theme because I think it is a very important theme. And I could not get away from the name of Jesus. And so, Jesus family. And then you took me over and talked about Crazy Rhoda and the weird New Testament church that prayed but didn't believe. That's a whole sermon in itself. You did a good job with that. There's a lot of crazy stories about families in the Word of God. The book of Philippians chapter 2. I don't know your mannerism or your customs here, so please forgive me. When you're a guest speaker, you never quite know what's right. But I have a little tradition that when I read a text, I really like for people to stand. So do you mind? I think we have a version up here on the screen, and I promise this is the last time I ask you to stand until I tell you we're dismissed, okay? But I want us to look at this, and so that we do it together, I would like for you to read off the screen, because not everyone will have looks like we're NIV. I told them any version would be good because it's basically the same thing. So I want us to read together. I want us to get this into our lives. Therefore God exalted him to the highest place and gave him the name that is above every name, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue acknowledge that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Go back to verse 9. I want you to look at this word. Gave him the name. The name. Every person in this building has a name. What does your name mean? For here, God gave him the name. You may be seated. Interesting thing when we begin to look at how families relate. Pastor did a really good job talking about the family, and sometimes the church is hesitant to go down this road. I can think of a young lady whom we pastored for a long number of years who told us, Pastor, I have no family. I really found it hard to believe, and in talking with her, I discovered that she still had a mother living, but apparently that was the only one. I still remember when her mother died, and you know, as is the culture of Oklahoma, you have a section reserved for the family, and they had her service in a funeral home, and so in that particular funeral home, they had the side of it where the family sat. And the family consisted of her, my wife, and our associate's wife. There were no descendants, there were no cousins, there were no uncles, there were no aunts, there were no nieces, there were no nephews. I do not know today, but what I'm speaking to someone that might fit that same description. And then there are others of us, like these two wonderful mothers and grandmothers whom we recognized a while ago, that bless her heart, she didn't know how many are here in her family. I think that meant she ran out of fingers and toes. So we come from a variety. And the church has an opportunity, a tremendous opportunity to step up in that gap. And it doesn't matter whether you have 20 plus or whether you are by yourself. We do our best to try to compensate when we talk about the family of God. You do your best. I thought, oh man, they knew what I was preaching. Did you notice on the sign out front? You ever read that thing? Boy, it's a beautiful sign. One thing that was going in the cycle today was, welcome home. I venture to say that runs every time, every Sunday, probably all 7 days a week. I have no idea, but I don't think it was just being run because it's his family day. And so we say, welcome home. And we try to respond to one another. You know, as a boy growing up in one of our churches, my place that I really discovered church was underneath the pew where Sister Kathy is sitting right now. I say underneath the pew because my pallet was under there, and it was on a wooden floor in a little bitty church in Drumright, Oklahoma. I still have vague memories. Now, I'm not one of those who can talk about the day I was born and all that, but I do have vague memories of trying to pull bubble gum and stuff down from the bottom of the seat. I don't think I ever ate it, but it was kind of a joy to, you felt like you accomplished something when you could unlodge some of that. My situation was different than most. I hate to admit my age, but I don't really mind. I was born at home, literally home. My mom and dad were workers in the oil field. We lived in what's called a lease house. Some of you may be able to reflect on some of those olden days where the company owned the house, not my folks. We were about 4 miles south of town. The nearest neighbor was a half a mile away. And they notified the old doc in town when they thought it was really close. And there, in our house, on her bed, my mom, with the doctor, and with our Assembly of God pastor's wife, Kathy, I don't know whether you're good at this or not. Our AG pastor's wife assisted in my delivery. My dad thought a miracle had happened. You see, at the time I was born, my folks already had 2 children, both girls. One of them was 19. The other one was 17. You would have thought a miracle occurred too. My dad made reference to another man that I still remember. In fact, I preached this man's funeral, as I have a lot of folk down through my years. And he had 3 daughters, and he was very jealous of my dad because his 3 daughters were all about the same age as my sisters, and he never had that last miracle to happen. I remember my dad telling me that old Brother Miser stood before him and cried and said, "I'd give $1 million for a baby boy." I don't mean to exaggerate or put it out of character. I was a promised child. I'm sorry my wife is not here because she will also tell you that I was a spoiled child. As you can well imagine, I had 3 mothers. My mother, my 19-year-old sister, my 17-year-old sister. I was in the car with my 17-year-old sister when she was proposed to. I don't remember it, but it was her job. She could not go anywhere but what little baby brother had to be taken along because my mom thought it would be a lot safer if the baby was in the car. So I was the chaperone. I appeared in my oldest sister's wedding, standing on a piano bench. And so I had 3 mothers. And my wife would let you know, no, she was not number 4. So here's what I want you to understand with me this morning. When we talk about a baby, when we talk about a birth, when we talk about a family, like we are on a crazy family day, I want you to understand that every one of us become assigned. Assigned. Now, we probably should understand that because in the truest sense, we might not want to admit it, but we are assigned a lot. Boy, that's a good credit card. A lot of ways. I got to look up one of my numbers. Yeah, Come back here, glasses. I am C01124005 as a member of the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma. It's my number. I am an ordained Assemblies of God minister. You folk will be glad to know it's current. And right down here at the bottom, I am number 2300226. I'm assigned. I guess I could give you my Social Security number, but since this is being put out over the internet, maybe I should not. Every one of you are assigned. You also were assigned a name. So what's in the meaning of that name? Well, those of us who are parents, grandparents, etc., we're always concerned, well, what does a name mean? And so there are hundreds and thousands of names, and I just kind of piddled around a little bit on the internet to find out that Frank, which is kind of my middle name. Because when I read you my numbers, my real birth certificate says that my name is Hubert. Pastor probably doesn't know that. He knows I use the initial H. And so legally, I've been known for years as H. Franklin Cargill. And I go by Frank, middle name. My dad's name was Hubert Floyd Cargill. Get the parallel? And he went by Floyd. I didn't tack the Hubert part to it, but I have one son named Anthony Franklin Cargill and another one named Andrew Franklin Cargill. Catch the middle name. And so I looked up the word Frank, and I discovered it means free. I don't know whether that describes me or not, but that's what the internet said was the meaning of my name. You can check on your name. I'll help you if you need me to, but every one of us have a meaning. And sometimes we say of children, he fits his name. She fits her name. My wife's name is Linda, and I believe she fits her name because that's a Spanish word pronounced as linda. And I love being in our Spanish services because every time I introduce mi esposo as Linda, the place goes wild because it's pretty one. And I think she fits her name. Linda, I hope you're listening. I know she's praying. Sometimes names determine the direction of a life. Now here we have Jesus, who has made a real point by the prophecies from heaven, by the angels that appeared, by the voice that came to Mary, by the symbolism of Joseph. I won't take time. That's a good Christmas message, and so I'll save that for Pastor in December. But you put all of these things together, and the name that is assigned. And what about the name of Elizabeth's baby that was born? And Zachariah, who came really late in life, that baby, and Zachariah didn't believe that his wife could ever be pregnant. And so the angel told Zachariah, don't worry about it. Your wife's going to have a son, and you're going to call his name John. And because he was probably so, I don't know what the word Zachariah means. It probably means talkative. And so the angel of the Lord sealed up his lips and wouldn't let him talk until the baby was born. And the first thing he was able to say was, when they asked, what's his name? Finally, his tongue came loose and he said, John. I don't know where your name came from. But not only are we assigned a name, but then we reach a place in our life whereby we are defined by that name. I could pick a name, but if I do, I'm going to offend somebody. Some people say that every Michael is full of mischief. Okay, I heard we must have at least one or two Michaels here today. And we could begin to describe other names, and sometimes it fits, sometimes it may not. But we tend to define by what's our name, who we are, what is our name. Now it's interesting how the names have a way of being defined. For example, I had never thought I would have anything like this happen. I was concerned because I heard that you guys had really good security here at this church, and I trust you do. But I don't know whether anyone ever checked the fact that I carried in a suitcase. You may not know what's on the inside of this, so whoever security is, I couldn't. There you go. It's not ticking. I was getting off the airplane in India. That's a little far piece from Oklahoma. Getting off the airplane in India, I picked luggage that is kind of visible. It kind of helps when you come through international flights. And we tie strings to it that usually don't match with anything else, just so that maybe the wrong person won't pick it up. And we've started something a long time ago. My wife's writing. I don't know if you can see it from there or not, but it says Cargill. And if you turn it over this way, it says Cargill. And if you turn it over this way, it says Cargill. And just about any way you want to look at it, you're going to find my name. A lady who was on that international flight saw me picking up the luggage and came over to me and said, "Are you Cargill?" Yeah. I mean, I already had claimed it, so I, Really? You're Mr. Cargill? I said, yeah. Need to see my passport? She said, "Oh, I want a picture with you." Okay. What's this all about? She said, "My dad has bought seed from your company for years and years. He thinks that Cargill Farms are the greatest enterprises going among agriculture." And I said, "Oh, ma'am, wait just a minute. I think we've got a mistake going somewhere here. I'm not that Cargill." She said, "Oh, Dad doesn't know. He's kind of got Alzheimer's now, and it won't matter anyhow." So here I stood in Calcutta with some woman who I didn't know from Ohio taking a picture to send to her dad because she was with Mr. Cargill. We get defined by our name. My dad rubbed it in on me because when I was headed out to be a freshman to go to college and in the car and was getting ready to drive away from home for, in essence, that first time of leaving and moving into the dorm and so on, I still remember my dad standing beside the car. "Son?" "Yeah, Dad." "Remember your name." "Okay. Because your last name's the same as mine. Don't mess it up." You think I haven't replayed those words in my head? Here I am, well over 50 years later, and I'm still telling that story. Don't mess it up. You're defined by your name. You are identified by your name. Whether we're talking a number or name, identified by your name. Jesus was identified by his name. Let that keep circling here a moment. But then we move from just merely being defined by our name, and this one is really unpleasant. We get refined by our name. A lot of us have trouble being refined. Being refined is not a very pleasant experience. Guys, I hope I gave you the right word, but if I didn't, well, it's because I changed my mind. Oh, there we go, refined. Refined. Isn't it amazing how people have the gift of whine? W-H-I-N-E, whine. I know I'm whining when my wife says, Would you like a little cheese to go with that wine? For those of you who have never known a life of sin, wine and cheese seem to go together, but anyway. And so I know what she means. You want a little cheese to go with that wine? She's saying, shut up, buddy. You've whined long enough. And in the process of being refined, even as Christians, even in the beautiful life of Covenant Church, you go through a lot of refining. The rain falls on the just and the unjust. We can't understand why some saints die of cancer or COVID or you name something. We can't understand why some people are killed in an automobile wreck. We can't understand why people have to go through suffering and sorrow. Let me tell you something. Did you ever examine the Word of God? Do you ever think that Paul experienced any tough times? Multiple shipwrecks, beaten multiple times, run out of city by the sheriff. What about the followers, the disciples of Christ? History tells us that all but one was killed by means of some form of execution. None died a natural life, except for John. Apparently, John did finally die of a natural life, but if you'll also study his history, you find that at one time he was placed in a boiling pot of oil, and he lived to tell the story. Why don't you tell Daniel? Why don't you say, Daniel, you never had to face any problems. Well, why don't you go spend the night in a lion's den? And so we go through this refining in life. We don't understand. And if we're not careful, we whine and we complain about things that are happening to us and to our families. And why does my family have to go through this divorce? Why does my family have to go through the loss of a child? Why does my family have to experience bitter sorrow and suffering of bankruptcy? I go to church. Pastor Keith is my pastor. I've been a good little boy. Why? Every one of us will go through the refiner's fire of life. Won't you tell Jesus he didn't have to suffer? We're refined. But I'm happy to tell you there's a fourth element about a name that I want you to realize. And that is, we become affirmed. Preacher, what do you mean? You see, this is my name. Yep, absolutely. You see, these are my identifying marks, credit cards, and all kinds of stuff. Get out of jail. Got all kinds of numbers. I remember several years ago, my first experience of passing through Germany. I went through the process. I laid my passport down, and the guy who was doing the inspection never opened it because he saw the U.S. symbol on the front. And he said, "Welcome." Boy, I was impressed. I was identified as an American, and I'm not ashamed of that. Let me tell you, I am not ashamed to be identified as a citizen of the United States of America. And I'm not. And if you are not registered to vote and you are a citizen of America, you need to turn your membership card in. Do I need to say it again? Every person should be a registered voter, and every person should participate in the upcoming election on November the 3rd. And you shouldn't have blamed COVID or anything else for keeping you away. If you can walk in your pajamas into Walmart, you can walk into a voting booth. But you see, my affirmation, It's more than that name. It's more than a card. It is more than my U.S. citizenship. I can dig out my voter's card. I got it laying up there too. It is more than that number. It's more than a symbol that the world has given me. Because I'm going to tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a part of another family. That's a whole lot bigger than the United States of America. That's a whole lot bigger than the Cargill clan. That's a whole lot bigger than the Cherokee Nation. I'm a member of another family, and it's called the family of God, because Jesus Christ is my Lord and my Savior and my Redeemer. Hallelujah! And I got news for you. I'm just traveling through down here. Yeah, I don't belong here. I'm not going to stay here. One of these days, the trumpet of God's going to sound. There's almost every week that I'm preaching another preacher's funeral. I've got all of that on top of my plate. But I'm telling you what, one of these days, Pastor Keith, you're going to say, where is old Frank Cargill? And I don't want any of you to say, well, hammer down. Now I got you back awake. When I pass, and I will, you will not have lost me. I will not be lost. Nor will you say, he is missing. No, sir. Because you can just guarantee, if GPS has a tuned radar to heaven, you will find that I am in the presence of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And I want to ask you on a crazy family day, what does your name say? Have you been affirmed? We opened by singing, and I told Pastor, I jotted it in my notes, and I thought, I won't use that because no one will know it. And you sang, there's a new name written down in glory, and it's mine. Oh, yes, it's mine. Years ago, when but a boy, I gave my heart and life to Jesus Christ. When but a kid, I was filled with the baptism of the Holy Ghost. When too young to know what I was doing, I even started preaching the gospel before I had credentials. I mean, I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, my anchor is firm. I know Jesus Christ is my Savior. I am on my way to eternal life, not because of that name, but because of His name and the fact I am redeemed by the blood of the Lamb of Jesus Christ. So here we are on a crazy family Sunday day. I have one question. Is your name recorded in heaven? Would you stand with me, please? Oh God, I thank you for your presence. Thank you, Lord, because you have moved in this place today, and I thank you for the beautiful attention that I've observed throughout the house. This is an important day. Oh, God. What is life? Why are we even here? Well, Father, what would it be like to have to spend an eternity without you? Even as I stood at the bedside of my mother, as she literally closed her eyes and went home to be with you, I still remember standing there in the hospital, and she was drawing her last breath. I simply leaned down to her and said, "Tell Dad hi." God, I don't want anyone here in this building. I don't want any family member to not have the assurance in their life that Jesus Christ is their Lord and their Master. And so this morning, on this very special Sunday, when we have families all across this place, I pray, Lord, that anyone who is here in this building that has not made sure that their name is recorded in heaven will take this opportunity right now, in Jesus' name, to accept you as Lord and Master of their life. You may lift your head. I know we're living in really weird days. They tell us if you're going to have an altar call, you need to have on masks. And there's all sorts of things, and I don't want to violate anyone's personal space, but for the most part, you're standing beside someone that you halfway trust, because you're standing by some of your crazy family. So for the most part, I'm going to ask you to do this morning. You don't have to shake hands. You don't have to touch. You don't have to hug. I don't mind if you do. You don't have to. If you want to take their hand, that's great. If it's a family member, it's even better. But I'd like for you to turn to whoever is beside you and to say, I know Jesus Christ as my personal Savior. And if there's anyone here who can't say that, then family member, I want you to say, would you like to know him as your Savior this morning? This is called the affirmation right now. I'm going to affirm. Now, dear friends, I'll turn the service back to your pastor. But let me add this. We'll vacate the sanctuary in just a few moments. And if you beside any family member who had to hesitate in saying, I'm right with God, I know Jesus Christ is my Savior, I'm going to ask you and that family member to not head toward the back doors. But as everyone starts shuffling out, I'd like the two of you to come and just stand somewhere across this front. And I guarantee you, you will not be alone. There will be others who will join you, because I don't want anyone to leave from here without knowing that Jesus is your Lord and your Master. God bless you, friend. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity.